Okay, so welcome to Christian Jackson. How you doing, Christian?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you for doing it. I know it's an interesting time right now because everyone seems to have time. So a lot of the people who I used to have to really work hard to schedule, like I've actually been trying to get you to come on for 6 months, and amazingly, all of a sudden your schedule cleared up for the
Isn't it
last couple of
crazy?
weeks.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
will say, though, that part of that was purely due to just apprehension of going on a podcast called Geezers of Gear
yeah,
when I don't think I would qualify myself for half of that statement.
yeah.
And yeah, just being, I
Well, remember,
guess, like I said, apprehensive.
Sooner Ruthier was on just a few weeks ago, so she's not much
Mhm.
of a geezer either.
Yeah.
And I've had Tiffany Keys on. I've had uh, Gumper on. He's
Hmm.
not. I don't think he's much older than you. Probably a similar
No.
age to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing because geezers, for sure, as far as how I use it, is typically, well, here's the funny thing. When I first started this, Geezers of Gear was me and one of my employees were going to talk about gear, and we were the
Mhm.
geezers. And so then what happened is we had these people going, "Hey, I want to come on your podcast and, talk about some of the things that I've done with gear or whatever." And they were old. And so all of a sudden they became the geezers. And then I started having young people tell me, like Eric Loader was one of the first ones. Eric said, "I can't come on until I'm 50." And so that's why we recorded him on his 50th birthday, because he decided geezerdom starts at 50. And
See, I
however,
think geezerdom is a mindset, personally.
well, so in the UK, geezer is like dude, buddy, whatever.
Hmm.
Like a couple of geezers going out to the bar is just a couple of guys going out to the bar, to the pub to get a beer or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And so to us here in North America, a geezer is usually an old dude. So, if you'd like, when I upload this podcast, I will make sure to put a disclaimer right at the front end of it that says, by no means is this gentleman any sort of a geezer. He's a young.
Hey, I wish I could fast forward and see exactly where I'm going to be when I pass that 50-year mark, and just like
Yeah.
see. I wish I could get that glimpse and see exactly where things end up.
I mean, I wish I could just see where it ends up a year from today
Hey,
because
it's a valid point.
where we sit right now, you don't have to look ahead to 50 to figure out what things look like. I mean, I think
Mm.
just coming out the other end of this thing that we're involved in right now, being coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, but these are interesting times, and I know that you joined us on the most recent happy hour thing that I did yesterday.
Yep.
And some people are really in a pretty down mood over this whole thing. Obviously, I mean, everyone in our industry is going through hell right now, whether you're a manufacturer, a rental company, a lighting designer, a front of house audio guy, a roadie, whatever you are. Your work has either gone completely, or at very least it's shifted into a lot less work or different work or whatever, right?
Yeah, and almost always going to be less fulfilling work by
Yeah,
definition.
yeah. Well, I was talking to an LD this morning who said, you know, I can't believe that I'm not allowed to design shows right now. Like I can't believe that my drafting table is clear and I can't design anything right now.
Yeah.
And I understand. I completely get that feeling. It's really tough not being able to do the things that you love to do. And I don't know. And I mean, then there's the financial aspect of it all, and how terrible it's impacting some people's lives. So how are you dealing with this right now?
Um,
Like,
well, I'll speak a little bit to the immediate downsides and the immediate kind of fallout from all of this happening to me personally. Um, this was supposed to be my first Coachella. We had a whole new stage design. for one of the artists that I work with, Louis the Child. They're like a pop DJ type act, and we just got done with our previous tour, and we were coming into our like West Coast / Central USA version of that tour with a whole new design, whole new content, and it's supposed to be like us perfecting everything and having like a really, really good, solid tour for once out of the gate. And our rehearsals were supposed to happen the week that everything got shut down.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's, you know, that was looking back on it now, I remember making comments, which I kind of regret now, saying, you know, every single year that I've been doing this, I've had the busiest year of my life. It just continually shifts every single year. This is the busiest year of my life. This is the busiest year of my life. And it's always rang true. And I made a comment in one of my videos wrapping up last year saying that, oh, my schedule for 2020 is already booked all the way out through November.
Yeah.
And yeah, oops.
Yeah.
So now it's no longer filled with, you know, travel dates and going and doing shows. It's instead filled with doing things like this or making videos or doing live stream events.
Yeah.
So I've been able to fill that with that.
I definitely want to get into the stuff you're doing with video, because I think it's key, and it's also interesting that you've been doing for years what people are just learning how to do right now out of necessity. And it's kind of the same for me, you know, like I honestly have seen, and I'm not complaining and being a little whiner or anything, but I've seen, you know, 10 new podcasts in our industry pop up in the past month. Some driven by magazines, some driven by a couple of manufacturers. And, you know, that's cool. I mean, if you're bringing people to the podcast medium, that's a very cool thing. I just think they're going to discover it's not quite as easy as they thought it was.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
You're going to end up talking to nobody an awful lot in the very beginning. I remember my first few episodes thinking, well, this is fucking stupid.
Yep.
You know, I'm talking
like,
to
wow, I got
people.
3 views after 2 weeks.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
You know, so you know, it's something that you really have to commit to, and podcasting's one of those ones where, you know, most people don't make it past 10 episodes before they give up.
Yep.
And so yeah, you're already doing some of those things that people are learning how to do now. Like you and I know Zoom inside out, but some of these new people coming in are just learning and going, wow, this Zoom thing is really cool.
And then they don't have headphones on and they're playing the audio through the speakers. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you saw me struggling on this happy hour yesterday just to try and find the person who had the echo.
And I will real quick.
I will announce that it was Aaron from PRG, and I already talked to him this morning. He reached out to me about something else, and I said, by the way, Aaron, can I send you a pair of earpods of some sort that you can plug into your computer? And he goes, no, I have them. I promise I'll plug them in next week. He had the worst echo going on. But so, Christian, I know you don't have to think very far back to think of how did you get started in this business?
Well, it's funny you say that because it was a very, very gradual thing. I didn't go to school for any of this. I didn't, well, with the exception of one class I took in college, which kind of made me realize that I didn't want to be in college. It's kind of ironic in that sense.
That's funny.
I started off in Billings, Montana. I was born and raised. And there were no like major production companies. There were no huge events with massive production that I would have ever been exposed to. I had to find that out through, ironically, watching YouTube videos. So when I was younger, I had a particular taste in trance music.
Okay.
And I was doing some research on some of my favorite artists, and I'd just, you know, look up their sets on YouTube. And I saw these videos of festivals in the Netherlands. And this was back in probably 2010, I want to say. So
way
10 years
back
ago.
Then. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like, you know, like I said, this is a very slow burn. And it's just these massive rooms filled with what I now know is like, you know, 15,000 people, you know, but when you look at it as someone who has never seen anything like that through a screen, it's insane. And it's like everybody has their phones up in the air recording it. And I'd never seen anything like that. And then the trusses started moving. And I was like, I didn't even know what truss was, you know, it was just all this structural stuff moving in the air. And
But this was
that
all on
was
YouTube. It
this
wasn't.
was all on
It
YouTube.
wasn't because you were exposed to a live show or a series of
Nope.
live shows. That's
Nope.
wild.
I saw that and then started just down the rabbit hole. And you know how this is. As soon as you see the end result of something that you want to achieve, you do the reverse engineering part of your brain kicks in, and you start winding back. Well, okay, well, how can I get to doing that? And you just peel layer by layer back all the way back until you eventually move out to Seattle and get a job pushing cases for Joe Cole at R90 Lighting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
So
that's
you
yeah.
moved to Seattle to get a job at a lighting company.
Not in so many words.
There was probably a girl involved at some point too.
Well,
there
was a breakup. There
was
a breakup with a girl who I was like, well, fine, then I'm just gonna go be way better over here.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know whether or not that actually came to fruition, but yeah. So there was Seattle was the nearest major market to where I was living at the time.
Yeah.
And I had a few connections, and I wanted to do things the real way rather than traveling around with my Chevy 1500 and a 12-foot trailer full of Global Truss.
But you knew you wanted to be in the lighting space?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And all from watching YouTube videos?
Yeah.
What was your first live show that you went to?
First live show that I vividly remember, I was in high school still, so this was like maybe a year after I had started down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
There was a I'm sorry if I'm gonna name names that don't come to mind, but Porter Robinson, Skrillex, and Zed, who are now 3 of the top 10 acts for electronic music in the world right now. And they were all playing a show at the Wilma Theater, which is like a 1,200 cap room in Missoula, which is about a 6-hour drive away from Billings.
Okay.
And I saw the lineup and I was like, oh my God, this is a once in a lifetime thing. So I drove to Missoula, saw the show, and it's like a basic ground package with a theater rig above, you know, like 6 Mac 500s and a Parcan rig, and then a ground package. But I had never seen like an EDM show in person before, and that was the first time. They had like magic panels and all sorts of stuff that was spinning, and I had no idea what it was at the time. But now that I remember that specific show was the one where I was like, this is so sick, and I 100% want to do this for the rest of my life. Now I can go back and look at it and say, oh, okay, those are magic panels. They were using Mac 500s. Of course, at the time, I have no idea what any of this is.
Yeah. And you're like 17 years old or something, right?
Yeah. I think I was 17 or 18. I was a senior, I think, in high school.
Wow. And so you move out to Seattle, you get a job at a lighting company, you're humping cases and wrapping cable and doing all the hard stuff, right? So you learned how to do it from the bottom. Right. And were you just like a really rambunctious young man who was like, you know, put me in, coach?
Well, I'm a very like passive person socially. It might not come across that way either through the screen or through the videos that I do, but I'm very cautious when it comes to jumping into things. I want to make sure like I kind of understand how all the pieces go together just enough so that I don't totally fuck it up.
Yeah.
And then at that point, then I'll get involved. But yeah, I was taking. I think what you mean, and I may have misconstrued it, is just taking as many opportunities as I possibly could at the time. So I was taking every gig I could.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a very common theme in our industry. A lot of successful LDs, if you ask them how they got to be successful, one of the things they'll say is they were very good listeners, number one. But secondly, they always said yes and figured it out.
Yep.
And, you know, nobody got anywhere, I think, in any industry by saying, oh, I don't know how to do that, you know. Saying yes and then figuring it out without causing a problem or a hazard or anything like that.
Exactly.
But saying yes to everything and then figuring it out, I think, is a great thing to teach young kids because, you know, it just gets you into a lot more opportunities and it makes you a go-to guy, you know, as long as you're not saying yes and then completely, like you said, fucking it up. Yep. So, so that's interesting. So how long did you do that before you kind of got your quote big chance to do something that you thought was more along the lines of what you really wanted to be doing?
So,
because I'm guessing you didn't dream about wrapping cable and
No,
loading
but at the
cases and
time, I
stuff.
mean, you know that these are all the building blocks that are going to be necessary for you to get to where you want to go. And I knew it was at the time too. Like, I'm fine with addressing uplights in a convention center. Like,
Yeah.
I knew that it was going to be fine in the end.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so there was a period of time after I moved to Seattle, where during the daytime, like early morning, waking up at 5 a.m. to go do, like I said, convention center calls, doing, I know I don't know if we all remember what those were, convention center gigs. I think those are going to be gone for a while now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, waking up super early to do those, doing a full day at the convention center, um, wearing my dress blacks, and then heading over and doing a shift at the nightclub and learning how to use the MA system that they had there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much all my life was for 2 or 3 years is, gigs during the day, more gigs at night, and then fill in the gaps with trying to learn MA as much as I possibly could.
Right. And why was that? You just saw MA as being sort of the future lighting control that everybody was going to be using?
The reason, well, at that point, it pretty much already was very, very well established. This was around, I don't want to get into I guess this is Gears of Gear. So I guess I
Yeah.
can get a little nerdy on the gear.
Yeah.
I want
Of
to say
course.
this was around software version 2.8,
Okay.
was when I started learning it. Now we're on 3.9, but that's, non-linear.
Yeah.
But I do remember that using MA for the first time, it was a culmination of everything that I had wanted to have in a control software, and I never even knew it existed. Like, I just didn't know that MA was a thing until I started using it for the first time at a festival that Aaron Altmark, I don't know if you're familiar with him,
No, I'm not.
but he's probably one of my biggest inspirations as far as designers, operators, business owners. He's one of the like I said, one of the hugest inspirations for me. He was running main stage at one of the festivals out here in the Pacific Northwest, and this is the middle of the day. It's like 3 p.m. set time or something like that. And he's like, "Hey, do you know how to run MA?" And no, I don't. But I was like, "Yeah, I can run the show file because I
Mhm.
know the music super well. I know when everything happens. I know the structure of the music. If you just show me which buttons to press and which
Right.
faders to move, like, you know, it's a
Can't be
monkey's
that
job at
hard.
that point. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, I did mess up with the speed though, because I couldn't figure out how to reduce the speed masters that he had going on, so everything was going a little too fast.
Yeah.
I cringe about that, thinking about that every time. But he let me run lights for like 30 minutes or an hour or something for one of my favorite DJs, and
That's
that
super
was that
cool.
was the moment where I was like, okay, this is the interface. This is the brain to reality interface that I've been waiting to discover. And
Yeah.
of course, MA costs so much money that I would never be exposed to it in Montana. Nobody had that. Like, it just
Yeah.
didn't exist. And so that was really the first time where I was like, this is the little key that unlocks everything that I've wanted to do in my life.
Have you ever tried to? I've never asked like sort of a younger designer this, but have you ever tried to go back and like create or run a show using like a Compulite? What was it called? Animator, Compulite Animator, I
I'm
think it
not
was called.
familiar with that one, but I definitely know Light Jockey like the back of my hand,
Okay,
because that was the only thing that I could really purchase and afford at the time. Because I think I bought one of the knockoff dongles from like Lithuania or something.
that's
It
funny.
was like $230 on eBay, which was so much money. And I remember staying up late at night in my room while my parents, everybody was asleep, because this auction ended at like 3 a.m. And it's like a
That's
school night, and I'm like
hilarious.
sitting up on my laptop. And this was back before eBay had the like auto bid feature where it
Right.
bid on your behalf,
Yeah.
and you had to stay up and wait so that you didn't get your bid sniped.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that, and I won the auction for this Light Jockey little 2.95 dongle. And 3 weeks later, I got it in the mail, and the idea of transparent cues, to where not every single cue was a snapshot of DMX time,
Right.
and you could actually have things layered over top of each other. Like, okay, I want this position with this color and this dimmer chase. and you could stack them together. It's like
And
this is the key. This is what I've been
you were
waiting
doing
for.
this stuff in your bedroom though,
Yeah.
with
Mhm.
the light jockey. And what
Yep.
fixtures were you using?
At the time, I had a pair of Martin SCX 500 halogen scanners.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't even discharge.
And so this was your bedroom light show. Was a couple
Yep.
of moving mirror fixtures and
Some
light
LED
jockey.
pars, and it was it eventually grew to be a full universe of gear. I eventually got like let's see, I think I ended up with 6 Elation Platinum Spot 5Rs and like 12 China Sharpies.
Oh wow! You
Like
know
it was a
it's
decent amount of gear for someone in Montana towing it around themselves.
but it's funny. Had I known you back then, I could have actually got you a gig in your very youngest days because I have a friend. So I used to work for Martin well
Mhm.
before your time, and my very first real customer I think that I had when I was at Martin was a guy who called from Montana and said, "Hey, I need lights and I'd like some help putting it together." And ever since then I've been good buddies with this guy, and that was literally probably pushing 30 years ago, like 28
Oh
years
wow.
ago. And his name is Jay Owenhouse. He's a magician, and
Oh really? Okay.
he's out of Bozeman, Montana.
Hmm.
And I've literally been dealing with this guy over 25 years, and he's actually supposed to be in Vegas starting in a couple of weeks. And of course, that's probably being canceled. I haven't
Yeah,
talked to him in the
fingers
last couple
crossed.
of weeks, but he still uses a light jockey to this day.
Hmm.
It's a really interesting magic act because it's a very family thing. He's got a bunch of tigers, but his kids, like one is the tech director, one is in charge of selling tickets, one is part of the
Yeah.
show, one is whatever. And so he's got this really beautiful semi rig and like a Prevost bus that the family tours
Wow.
in. And they do smaller venues, they do smaller towns where they don't have a venue. And they bring the stage, they bring everything, and they'll set
Wow.
up like in the local gymnasium in a school and sell 500 tickets in a town where they have never had a show like that.
Wow.
And it's a
That's a cool
major
business
magic
model.
act, major magic act with live tigers too. And so
Wow.
he's done very, very well for many, many years now, and still runs Martin Lighting that I've been selling him every time he wants to
That's
change his
amazing.
show. He calls me and says, "Can I get four more?" Like he called me a couple weeks ago, and we needed to sell him another dozen Martin Rush wash fixtures or something.
Yep.
So, anyways, funny point that I could have given you a
That's
gig
amazing.
with him, 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago when you were
If
looking
only,
to learn. Yeah.
right?
So,
That's so funny.
yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I talk to younger guys like you who learned on, well, I mean, you learned on a light jockey, but, really from a console standpoint, learned on the MA2.
Yep.
I think back to how people had to run moving lights on an AVO desk or an ETC, like two scene fader desk, and they're running
4896. Yeah.
moving lights off of it, or
Yep.
triggering LCD controllers, high end LCD controllers,
Mhm.
or LED controllers from that console using an analog trigger where you program a cue on the LCD controller, and then you trigger that cue from your fader desk, right?
Yep.
So, and then we got into some moving light consoles like CompuLight made one, and there were a few other companies who made them as well. And they were so clunky and shitty and not very reliable and crashed a lot and really hard to learn, just really weird syntax and stuff.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, the Hog 2 came out, and that's really where everything changed. Was when the Hog 2 came out. Have you ever tried programming a show on a Hog 2?
I have not.
No. Interesting.
I've thought about doing kind of a series on my YouTube channel where basically because I'm a gear idiot like the
Yeah.
rest of us,
Hmm.
I'm always cruising either eBay or gear stores or used lighting, any of those places to find like ridiculous deals on obsolete consoles.
Uh-huh.
So like I'm always like, this max is $1,000. Maybe I should. I mean, the freight is going to be more than that to just get it here.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be awesome to have a library of physical consoles from through the ages and kind of keep it as a historical type thing.
Well, I think also for YouTube, like to me, to have a guy like you who's, a very accomplished MA guy go back and do a YouTube video of you, let's say, it's a challenge like a television show where you've got to go figure out how to program a show on a Hog 2 and you've
Hmm.
got 3 hours to do it or whatever, and then to see what that result looks like. I mean, that'd probably be a really funny
I like
video.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So I take full credit for that idea.
All
Thank
right,
you.
I will. I'll give you 50% of the ad revenue on all of
Yeah.
those videos.
Oh, geez. Yeah. And how do I pay for the other half of my cup of Starbucks coffee?
Oh,
Yeah.
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 I will
So,
say it's a very slow burn with ad revenue, but once you get a good library of videos going, it is just a cycle that keeps building on itself.
yeah. Yeah. No, I really want to get into that because,
Yeah.
you've definitely done something that I've never done and have always been curious about. And I know some people who are YouTubers who have done really well with it, but
Hmm.
they're more on the personality side, like where it's like, hey, follow me. I'm going to go skateboarding. Now I'm going to go ride my bike. Now I'm going to talk to
Yeah.
these two girls. That I have no interest in. My son watches this stuff where he just follows a guy, like Jake Paul and these kinds of guys, right? And
Yeah. So
it's
he's a Jake Pauler.
he is. Well, he
Oh,
met a
okay.
few of those guys because he used to be my son is a race car driver, but he used to be also really into scootering. And through
Hmm.
that scooter slash skateboard thing, you meet a lot of those types, especially if you're going to local parks or riding competitions or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember the names of these guys, but he'd get his picture taken with these guys going, Dad, do you know who that is? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no idea.
No idea.
I
Yeah.
haven't got a clue. And, you don't feel, I mean, it makes you feel so damn old when, I understand the technology, but I don't really know these people that are using it
Yeah.
very much. So, yeah. So take me back. You're in Seattle and
Hmm.
you're working for R90 Lighting. And so what happened? Like, again, how did you get your first real opportunity
Right.
where somebody said, hey, Christian, we need a designer for this show. Are you up for it?
I've honestly only been doing design work for the past like year and a half or 2 years. Before that, I only ever did programming, and it's probably pretty common. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like a pretty common thread where people who end up being a designer, they start off as like we all did, pushing cases. Then they become a console jockey for a while, and then they kind of get into the point where they're like, well, man, I'm pretty sure I could design these shows. Like, I'm pretty sure that I have the acumen and like the mental fortitude to not totally fuck this up
Yeah.
and draw a simple plot. So I've only been doing that semi recently, and my first major design gig was the last tour that I did with Louis the Child,
Okay.
and it was like 10 or 12 universes of lights, big ground package, video wall, um,
So
pretty detailed.
what about your first big programming gig then?
First big programming gig would have been for one of the music festivals up here. I don't know if you're familiar with Sasquatch Music Festival. It's kind of dead now,
No.
but that was another like Joe Cole gig where he was like, okay, you actually know MA now. Do you want to be the house LD for the B stage at Sasquatch?
Oh,
So that was the
wow.
first time where like, I'm the guy who is not necessarily calling the shots, but I'm the guy who is in charge of making sure that this stage looks like the renderings do, and make
Yeah.
sure that all of the guest LDs, when they come in, they have all of the information. And it's scary when all of these pros are coming through and you're like, I think at the time I was 22 or 23, and all these professionals are coming in with their big ground packages, and they need to interface with you and make sure their show goes well. So that was like the first time I was like, okay, I'm really doing this for real. Like, this is, if I screw this up, this could be, I no longer get any more gigs.
Yeah.
Or if I do this well, and thankfully I did, then it leads to more work as a house LD for festivals. And that's pretty much where it went from there. Then I became like one of the two or three uh, go-to guys in Seattle for festival LD
Oh,
gigs.
wow.
Yeah.
So were you super intimidated when you got that gig and you were, the guy sort of liaisoning with all of the touring LDs and
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I didn't have to do a whole lot of advance work at the time. That was mostly handled by the stage manager, so I didn't have a whole lot on the front end to worry about. But that was the first time where there were all sorts of crazy protocols going back and forth. Like, okay, this guy wanted to do an ArtNet merge, and then this guy has a ground package that they brought their own NPU for. And it was the first time where I kind of got to really test my understanding of the whole control system.
yeah.
And it went great. And I learned a lot in the process as well, and I still continue to every day,
Yeah.
as we all do.
Yeah, I mean, you seem very sort of deep into like even when you talk about when you got that first light jockey and went and found the illegal dongle and you're a gear guy and you're definitely probably very much on the sort of gear geek or nerdy side of the
Mhm.
gear and figuring things out. How does it work? Why does it work? What's the best way to use it? Those types of things versus coming in sort of from the art side of things.
Absolutely.
And I mean, another thing that's I think a little unusual about you compared to a lot of younger lighting people is so when I go back to designers that I talk to a lot on this podcast from like the 70s and 80s and 90s, a very high percentage, 90%, maybe even more, came into this business by accident,
Mhm.
not because they went to school for it. Back
Right.
then, first of all, there really was no school for rock and roll touring lighting design or whatever, right?
No
So
Full
what
Sail back then.
no, there was no Full Sail, but there really wasn't even great, technical theater school and things like that back then. So a lot of times, what was happening is, you just knew somebody who knew somebody who said, "Hey, do you want to go out on the road with, Judas Priest?" And next thing
Yep.
you know, you're out with a heavy metal band, you know, wrapping cable or pushing gear around. And but now most people who are coming into it are coming in through either theater school or Full Sail or those types of technical colleges that are teaching lighting design. And so you're coming in a lot more educated for this business, but you really learned it sort of hands on as opposed to in school. So I think it's kind of unique. I mean, I'm sure there's still a lot of people kind of coming into it like that, but
It's
but
funny you
it's
say that. I feel like it's still. I don't think maybe the ratio is as you said it was way back then, but I still think I would say probably 70% of people, at least who I know, other designers, other programmers, they didn't go to school for it either.
really.
And
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So
I
maybe
mean, it
maybe we
was
just run in
certainly,
different circles, but I don't
yeah.
know for sure.
Well, I'm just thinking like if I talk to 10 major lighting designers that are under 40,
Hmm.
um, most of them will have taken some sort of technical lighting
Interesting.
courses at some point.
Okay.
It just seems that way. Like, from my era, it was more either you were a club guy, a club lighting guy, or a club DJ who learned how to run the lighting controller, or you were a musician was very common. And, you weren't the greatest musician and you ended up being a lighting guy. And, I don't know if you've heard any of my podcasts, but like Howard Ungerleider, Rush's guy for over 40 years,
Hmm.
Howard was a musician and then went and got a job at an agency. And, he had been begging this agency to book his band. And they just kept saying, "Howard, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here." And then finally he was like, "Well, can you give me a job then?" And they
Hmm.
were like, "Get out of here, get out of here." And finally they gave him a job, like going and getting people coffee and stuff.
Yep.
And then he worked his way up to where he booked a couple gigs and he was kicking ass really. And they said, "Hey Howard, we got this little band in Canada that needs a guy to come out and help them out. Do you want to take the gig?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it, I'll do it." And it was this little unknown band called Rush. And
Right.
he's driving the van through snow and freezing cold in Canada and thinking, "What
Amazing.
the hell did these guys send me to do?" And that became like a 45-year career or whatever with
That's
Rush. So
incredible.
so yeah, I mean it's a little bit different. And so now are you completely independent or do you still work with
Hmm.
R90 today? You're
I'm
completely independent
independent
now.
now. Yeah. I I'll occasionally, if they're in a pinch for some festival house LD slot, like this, I did a video on this show, Bumbershoot, back when we did shows. Um, that was like the most recent, and I usually end up doing 1 or 2 gigs a year for them now, and they're kind enough to continue to issue me as a W-2 employee instead of 1099ing me. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah,
That's really cool. So, but you don't have a gear company, do you, or do you?
no.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I have a sole proprietorship where I rent out like my console, or
Yeah,
I've got some DJ gear too. So backline rental is or was a pretty good secondary income source.
I see.
Just because I know a lot of people who do these DJ tours, and they always need the same exact gear.
Yeah,
There's no variation in it at all. I
yeah,
can buy 10 of the same unit, and they're all fungible. They can all be interchange with another, and they just
yeah.
go out and make money, and then they come back.
That's cool. And so, which MA console do you have? Do you have a three yet, or is it still a two?
No, I have a two. I know
Okay.
I'm living in the past.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can get away with that today. Who knows a
Yeah,
year from now? Because it happens. It seems to happen suddenly where, maybe MA will come out with this incredible new feature that's no longer backwards compatible.
yeah.
And then the price of the two console goes like this, just like the one. The one held on for a long time, and then it fell off a cliff, and now you can buy them for like a couple grand or whatever.
Yep.
Probably $1,000 you could find one.
Yeah, there's a couple
So,
Picos on eBay for $1,000 right now.
oh Jesus, yeah, that's crazy.
Hmm.
So, so yeah, I mean, I think you'll probably end up working out a deal with someone to get you into a three out of that too, right?
That's the thing, though. I don't try to do stuff like that. I don't try to get special deals on anything for like exposure, or me just making posts about, like, I have that as like kind of a um personal moral. I don't want to say like code of ethics or whatever, but
Yeah,
I don't want to be given any advantages
you don't want to owe
intrinsically.
favors.
No, I don't want to owe anybody anything.
Yeah,
I'm one of those crazy guys who has like no personal debt. The only bill that I have is like, food, water, and the rent that I pay in this place
yeah,
because I can't afford a house yet. I don't
yeah.
have any other debt.
Well, that
So
looks
I
good
don't, I'm
right
like, oh,
now.
it
That
does look good.
definitely
It
looks
feels real
good
good.
right now. Well done
Yeah.
on that one. But yeah, I mean, maybe after the podcast, we should talk about that because I think you could absolutely get by without owing anybody any favors and still
Yeah.
find your way converting into
I
into
noticed
an MA3.
there's an MA3 light on Gear Source right
Is
now.
there?
I have the tab pulled up right now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now, GearSource has been really focused on this concept that we're calling daily deal, where we're really
Yep.
trying to focus the company just selling one piece of gear every day, as
Hmm.
opposed to, hey, we've got these 10,000 listings over here. We're trying to focus around one deal a day and just keep the people busy and keep people employed. I haven't laid off anyone, and
That's amazing.
it's been a pretty good thing so far. So I want to talk about YouTube here for a bit and just
Do it.
social media in general because one of the things and the reason I reached out to you to begin with was because I didn't know anything about you. You just kind of dropped into this planet and had 45,000 followers or whatever it was, and I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
Hmm.
And so I went and talked to Eric Loader about you, and he said, yeah, he's a good guy, young guy, up and coming, good designer, talented guy. But yeah, he's got this huge following on social media. And so it's interesting because you just explained how you started. You learned the business basically by watching YouTube videos.
Hmm.
That's where your passion came from. That's where your desire to get into the lighting business came from watching concert videos on YouTube. And that went kind of full circle to where you're still using YouTube as a tool now to promote what you do and to promote your business, but to help other people
Yeah.
as well, right?
Yeah.
So, how did that all happen, or was it just completely organic? It just, that it just followed
It's
the
pretty
wave that you're already
organic.
on. Yeah,
It's funny because you can look back and you can scroll through all the way to the bottom of any of my accounts, and you can see how pathetic it starts. It is
yeah,
just like it's very cringeworthy and very rudimental from the beginning, and then just over time, I just posted what I'm doing and what I'm involved in, and as I mean, I'm pretty sure it's 100% organic. I didn't do anything to to boost it necessarily, but it originally started off as more of a project or um, a tool for me to get better at like social interaction, because I'm a very, very socially nervous and anxious person in general.
Which
I
is
still am.
bizarre because you've put yourself out there so much
Yeah,
on YouTube and stuff.
yeah, and
So
it makes
it's
it hard to still kind of reconcile with how I still feel a lot of the time inside, and I don't want to get like all whiny like you said. Um, but it's tough because people make a lot of like assumptions about the type of person that I am based off of the things that I post and the way I project myself. Which, hey, in their defense is totally my bad. Like if I present myself in a certain way and I'm maybe not exactly that way in real life, then I guess that is
well,
a valid
I
criticism.
think people think that if you're putting yourself out there that much and you're doing that many videos and they're getting that many views and you're
Mhm.
recording like walking to the gig, being at the gig,
Yeah.
working during the gig, loading out the gig, whatever, you're recording all these things, you must be just a completely arrogant, self-centered A-type
Totally.
prick,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
And
The worst.
knowing you the tiny little bit that I've got to know you, you're the opposite of that. You're not that at all. You're a very laid back, very quiet, very passive, like you said, very socially passive person
Mhm.
who just happens to, be super into, recording these things for YouTube.
Yeah, I think it's also kind of a way for me to let me put it this way. The videos I make are directed at the 18-year-old me, right?
Yeah, I can see
Where
that.
I'm creating the stuff that I would have loved to see and what would have given me that ledge, not a full ladder to climb up, but just that ledge to see what's on the other side of these stages and see
Yeah.
how it all goes together.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see that. I can totally see that you're kind of playing to your crowd,
Mhm.
and so, I mean, when you first started doing that, it was just a very natural thing, right? It's like, well, I better put this on YouTube. And you weren't necessarily looking to become a YouTuber right at that moment or to gain an income from it or to, you probably weren't getting any ad revenue in the early days, I would guess.
No. Let me
Eh,
hang on. I'm really curious. Well, keep going on. I'm going to see if I can pull up what the revenue
y-
was for those years.
Oh, that'd be funny. Yeah. And I mean, I'd love to see your very first video. That'd be funny too, you
Oh,
know?
it's not good. I mean, I can link it to you. It actually it's a DJ gear tutorial, and
Is it
it's
really?
really it's off. It's so bad.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
leave it up because you have to leave your first of anything up, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Well, and it's all like, I mean, you know how many people I tutor on doing a podcast and who spend 6 months setting their podcast up, 3 months coming up with a logo, 2 months figuring out what gear to use. I think I recorded my first podcast. I don't even remember. It might have been on my cell phone. And
Uh-huh.
then I went from that to just recording into the microphone on my laptop once I figured out how to use GarageBand. And
Mhm.
then it went from that to having a $50 Audio Technica microphone. And, the gear just kept getting better as I understood what I was doing. And I just wanted a little bit better sound quality. But I mean, I listened to some podcasts that have millions of listeners that have half the gear that I've got
Yeah, they
and
use
don't have a
a phone,
logo.
and that's it,
Yeah. Or
basically.
that, yeah. I mean, there's an Australian guy that I listen to who has millions of listeners and he still does it. He puts his phone in the center of the table and there's a guy on the other side of the table and they're doing an interview
Yep.
across from each other. And that's his podcast, but that's
Mhm.
what podcasting was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be this polished, done in studio kind of thing, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah,
even Joe
who would
Rogan.
be silly enough to
That's
do something
funny.
like that?
That's funny. That's funny. No, but I mean, even Joe Rogan, who's of course the biggest there is in podcasting, I
Mhm.
think, anyways. Um, but it's very raw. It's very unpolished. Even though, yes, he has a producer, and yes, they
Right.
do a lot of editing and stuff that I don't necessarily do. But I mean, to me, it's supposed to be a pretty raw format, and so, you know, there's nothing wrong with your first video being stupid. There's nothing wrong with getting 10 listeners on your first podcast. None of
That's
these
right.
things are bad things. And what you got to do is you got to persevere. You got to keep going. You got to push
Yep.
forward because, I don't know what the stats are today. Probably it's similar on YouTube as it is on podcasting, but podcasting, I think it's like, 8 out of 10 podcasters never get past 10
Hmm.
episodes. And it's sad because, I mean, unless you're just boring. Like if it's two ladies sitting talking about cooking, there's probably already a million of those out there. Nobody wants another cooking thing unless you're doing something so outrageous or different that
Yep.
nobody else is doing. You're probably not going to get any, legs under you. You got to have something
Absolutely.
relatively unique, right? So, you know, you started this YouTube thing, and at what point did you start going, I'm getting some traction here?
Let me look here. I believe.
Well, did you feel it,
No,
or was
I
it all
still don't.
just
I
based
still
on
don't
looking
feel it.
at
I'm
the
still waiting for it. What do you mean?
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's
No, I
wild.
think. I think. No, I really. There's that. I still haven't had that moment where I feel like this relief. Like, okay, wow, this is like actually gonna be okay. I don't. I
Yeah,
still don't feel that. I don't. I don't count on any of it ever being a permanent source of either career or fulfillment. It's
yeah,
purely it's purely a way for me to document what is currently going on in basically my work life, because I don't want to say it's like a lighting channel or like a anything like that. It's not specific like that. I mean, my channel name is my own name. It's not like some company name.
right.
It's just me experiencing my journey through the different things. Like if you see the start of my videos, I'm doing these really awkward DJ gear tutorials telling someone how to use a piece of gear that has a 10-page user manual. Like
Yeah,
it's stupid. Like it makes no sense. And then, yeah, I've found footing in doing these lighting videos and kind of serving as a pseudo mentor for a lot of people who were in my shoes who didn't have the resources or um, even awareness of what any of this is.
but
um,
it's got to be going beyond a lighting crowd because the thing is, if you're getting
yeah.
40, 50, 100,000 views or whatever,
There's not that many of
there
us.
there
Yeah.
ain't that many lighting people out there. Trust me, I've been in the lighting business a long time selling to these people,
Yeah.
and there ain't that many of them. Yes, there are a large number, especially if you're talking about like the bedroom or garage enthusiasts who just have a light jockey and two moving mirror fixtures.
Right.
There's probably a much larger number of those out there. Um, but I mean, you've got to have gone beyond the lighting crowd.
I think you're right. It's hard for me to really it's hard for me to measure that, except for when people make comments on the video specifically, like the Instagram and like Twitter and stuff like that. That is almost 100% lighting people, from
Yeah.
what I can tell. But the videos, like the way that YouTube recommends videos and the way it propagates your video through other communities of people who maybe it's just one person from this other section of the Venn diagram of YouTube that watched my video for an extra 10% than any other type of video. It instantly recommends it to everybody else who is in that other circle.
Really
Yeah,
interesting.
it's phenomenal how many people I see in the comments, like this is, and I comment this a lot on videos that I find randomly too. I'm like, I don't know how I found this. I don't know how YouTube managed to figure out which synapses fire to give me the right amount of dopamine that made me enjoy this video, but they figured it out and they served it to me.
Yeah.
And that's where I say I have to make sure that I embrace that rather than be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Because the biggest videos that get that reaction where people are like, I didn't even know this was a thing. I don't know anything about lighting. Why did I watch this for 30 minutes?
Yeah.
It's the videos where I'm actually like on a show site doing something. It's not a tutorial where I'm sitting there with like, a button down shirt and a clean white background
Yeah.
saying, welcome to today's video where we will be talking about how to write a cue. It's not, like none of that stuff. Like I do have videos like that, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a bread and butter type thing where they're there for the core audience. But the broader audience is reached by having the the relatable videos where I'm actually going and talking with people or visiting a manufacturing facility. Stuff like that is what really entertains people.
Yeah, I mean, but we're in a cool industry, and we're
Yeah.
also in one that I think, everybody's been to a concert, and I'm sure a percentage of those people, those kids who are going to see an EDM festival or something, they're going, I wonder how they do that.
Hmm.
So I think some of it is that curiosity that's just being, fulfilled, where they're going, whoa, Christian's showing us exactly how they put that rig together, or exactly
Yeah.
how those lights go up or hang, or, what's actually involved. And, I know I'm a Formula One junkie. And a lot of times I end up on these weird sort of down the stream racing videos or
Hmm.
how they did it kind of videos. And it's the same kind of thing, it's
So
because
you
I'm
watch Chain Bear?
enthusiastic.
Are you subscribed to Chain Bear?
I don't know.
He
I
does a Formula One analysis and like really technical videos with like exploded drawings of
Yeah,
how different components work.
probably. You know, eh, I mean, I only have so much time to dedicate to
Yeah.
that stuff, sadly, because I still
Yeah.
have a life and I still have two companies or three companies and
Hmm.
I have employees and all of these other things. But, I mean, it's really exciting to me what you've done on the so and so I'll give you a perfect right here at home example because I do nothing with social media, as you can see. You've probably
Hmm.
checked me out before you came on, and
I
I have
did.
very small followings on everything. Instagram. The funny thing is, yesterday I started the day, Geezers of Gear. I started the Instagram recently, have done nothing to add followers, and I only had about 225 followers, I think, at the beginning of yesterday. You posted something yesterday, and by the end of the day, I had 300 followers.
Hey,
You added like 40% or 30% followers to my Instagram
I'll send you an
following
invoice.
in one day. And so that says something about what you've built. And the funny thing is none of them were bullshit spammy followers because
Yeah.
I just randomly went through and it was so and so lighting guy, so and so lighting guy, this audio guy.
Yep.
And so, those are high quality followers. And so you've definitely done something really good. And next, if you could help me on YouTube, that'd be awesome. I have no idea what I'm doing on
It's
YouTube.
hey, it's just like what you said with podcasting, where
Yeah.
if someone just literally has a phone set on to record in the middle of a table between two people talking, as long as the content is unique
Hmm.
and it has somewhat of an audience, it'll get legs. Like I promise you. You don't need like I over the years I've upgraded gear and I just spent a lot of money upgrading my live streaming setup so that I don't have to do editing. It's just all done live.
Yeah.
But yeah, the gear part of it and the setup, it's just iterate. The only thing that matters is making iterations on what you've published. And
Yeah.
I've been trying to convince my girlfriend because she wants to start a channel too, and she does like really fancy makeup techniques, things like that. And she keeps making these videos but never publishes them.
Oh.
And I'm like, you need to just upload it. Just please. I promise you, like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter as long as you are just creating and iterating.
Yeah, but
That's all
see,
that
for
matters.
me, it's not that. It's not that I'm afraid of publishing things because I don't know if you noticed on YouTube, but what I'm doing is basically like these, either just my podcast episodes or these happy hours we're doing for this COVID thing. Very, very important stuff. But
Yeah.
I'm just doing it so that people have an ability to go back if they
It's
weren't
a
able to
record.
make the call, or it's a record. It's just to go back and what was that thing we were talking about, and to go back and
Yeah.
be able to reference it. Um, but I mean, they're getting no views. And so, I guess my thing is going to be to try and figure out how to get from no views to at least enough so that there's some momentum started.
Yeah.
And, I know how to do that in podcasting. I definitely don't know how to do it on YouTube. I know how to do it on Facebook and I know how to do it on Instagram if you want to spend money. But
Right.
to me, that's all
It's not
fake.
worth it.
Buying
It's all
followers
fake.
and buying Instagram ads and stuff is stupid.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, what you've done is incredible. It really is. It's super cool. You're the only guy I think in our industry. I mean, you're certainly the top YouTuber in our industry, I would think.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so. I've been this is actually kind of a point that's bugged me because um, I feel like it makes me lazier that there's no one else who's really kind of doing what I'm doing. I wish there was a selection of people who could push each other because, like, we all have our own circles of interest, and one of my interests is aviation and flying,
Mhm.
and that's a relatively small community too. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of YouTubers out there publishing videos about, hey, we're doing this trip and here's my flight plan and this is our whole journey as we do it, and they're only getting like 200 500 views, sometimes 1,000, but they're publishing like every single week, and there's an insane amount of competition which only drives the top 10 people. It pushes them to go even higher and put more
Yeah.
production quality into it. So like I
Yeah.
just wish there were more people doing videos about production and not just like product announcements.
Yeah.
It gets old. It gets boring. I can read a spec sheet. I don't need some fancy graphic with animations to tell me how many lumens your new moving light has.
Yeah. No, I mean you're by the way, do you know Lieberman? Steve Lieberman?
Yep. I
Yeah.
don't know him personally, but I've been a guest LD most recently at ADC Mexico. He was
Okay.
a house LD there.
Because he's a big fly nut.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's got a plane and
That's where I want to be.
yeah.
That's remember how I was talking about I wish I could see into the future. That's like my 35 years old self. I see
Yeah.
that as being like a copy of Steve Lieberman, in at least his lifestyle, at least.
Yeah.
That
Well,
would be
I
cool.
knew I knew Steve Lieberman when he was much younger, and um, it wasn't always so glamorous, put it that way. So,
Yeah.
I knew him when he was a struggling club lighting guy in New York City,
Wow.
and was going nowhere. And things happened. He's a hustler. He's a hard worker, and things started to happen for him, and he got a couple of opportunities and made good on them. And God bless the guy. I mean, he's created a really, really amazing career from being just a scruffy, scrappy lighting guy in New York clubs.
Mhm.
And there's a few of those guys out there. Gumper has a really cool backstory, and my meeting with Gumper was a good one, was a funny one because I remember this young kid. He probably was 16 years old. Came up to me at LDI, and I believe I was with Martin at the time. I was with Martin at the
Mhm.
time, and he said, "I want to buy 12 lights from you, and I want to be your biggest rental company in New York." And I'm like, "Really, kid?" And but I'll tell you, I'm one of these really curious guys, especially at trade shows, where I don't just blow people off and say, "Get out of here, you're a
Yeah.
punk." I say, "How are you going to do that? Tell me your story. Tell me your business model. What's your business model look like? How are you going to become the biggest?" And he had such a cool story and such a cool plan that he put forward that we cut him a deal and sold him these 12 lights that he wanted. And guess what? In not too lengthy of a time, he became one of the largest Martin rental houses in the New York
Wow.
market. And so, and as you know, he's done very well since then, with his mega structures and all that stuff. So I'm a big fan of guys like that who are hustlers and who didn't come in through theater school, and they found a way like to sort of carve their niche into the business. But I am going to pick your brain on YouTube one day and figure out
Okay.
how to get users.
Let's do it. You figure
Because
out how to get me an MA3 light, and I'll figure out how to get some followers on YouTube.
well, I think both of those can be easily accomplished. And so I'm going to ask you some of the funny questions that probably don't pertain to you at all that I actually ask every single guest that
Okay.
comes on my podcast. And you being younger, the answers to these are probably going to be very different and somewhat funny. So, first, what is the best piece of advice you've ever given or received?
Oh, best piece of advice given or received?
And I know you're only like 19 years old, so
I'm 27.
yeah. So it's not like you've had a long time to have really sat on that advice.
I'm going to I'm gonna have to do a rain check on that one because I'm kind of stumped right now. I honestly
Really?
can't. Yeah, I can't really think of a specific piece of advice.
Is there nothing like when you're stuck on something on a show or whatever, isn't there something that you go back to and go, what would Bob do or
Oh,
whatever?
I mean, it's more of like an adage.
Yeah.
It's just, like the light the money and keep it simple. It's breaking things down into its basics and not getting too complex. But that's just more general advice. I can't think
No,
of
but
any
that's
specific.
good advice. That's
Yeah.
great advice. Um, in our industry, one of the coolest things, and I know you're really into the gear and stuff, but you also have to every once in a while go, wow. And so I think in our industry, like, there's so many opportunities to meet rock stars or pop stars or whatever, to be standing on a stage where the Rolling Stones gear is right behind you and you're saying check, 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 you know, or whatever, right? And
Mhm.
so, what at this point in your very young career, what is your biggest career pinch me moment?
Oh, the pinch me, I'm dreaming moment.
Yeah.
I think there have been a few like that, but I want to say, well, it could be two things. There could be like the pinch me, I'm in a nightmare, or pinch me, I'm dreaming, and
Tell me both.
I have answers for both of those.
Yeah.
Probably like the pinch me nightmare moment was um, just last year. I was doing a show with Zomboy, and it was the first major festival where we were trying to have. There's someone with a very loud vehicle outside. My apologies.
Okay, no problem.
We were trying to integrate uh, video, lighting, lasers, everything in one show, and it we didn't have enough time or budget to fully flesh everything out in previs, and we just didn't have enough time to do all the programming, and it was kind of a punt show regardless. And we showed up, and the changeovers, I don't know if you're familiar, but the changeovers in dance music are on the order of 30 seconds to 45 seconds.
Hmm.
And this was a headline slot, and I go to load up the computer that translates the CDJs, the DJ players on the stage to time code, and it wasn't working properly. And I'm fine with the MA. I can troubleshoot that in 2.2 seconds, and it's no problem. But we were using this whole new system for time coding the visuals and the lighting together, and I ended up having to busk every other song,
Ugh.
which was not how it was supposed to be. And it was the longest, I think it was a 90-minute set. It was the longest, like 90-minute set of my entire life. Probably the worst show I've ever done.
Wow.
That one keeps me up at night. But
Yeah.
pinch me, I'm dreaming. I don't get starstruck. I know I'm one of the weird guys. Like I'm like one of those really socially weird people that I don't get starstruck. I try to think of everybody as their own person. I don't judge
Yeah.
that. I can't know anybody, so I don't get starstruck by individuals like that.
You're just there to do your job and do it the
Yeah,
best you
it
can, right?
really, like, seriously, as weird as that sounds, I know some people do like the flashiness of everything, and they like, the feeling of the big crowds. I hate crowds.
Yeah.
I hate being. I'm enjoying this isolation. I would much rather just be by myself than in a sea of people. But
Yeah. Well, and
that's why I don't really get starstruck.
believe it or not, even though I'm spending all of my days talking publicly to people or talking on podcasts or talking on webinars or talking on all of these things, I'm the
Mhm.
same way. I'm uncomfortable in crowds. I'm uncomfortable in a group of people.
Yeah.
And so, for me, maybe this is similar to what you were saying on the YouTube videos. Maybe this is somewhat of a release or whatever you want to call it. I mean, maybe it just strengthens me to be able to do these things to where I feel like it's okay to, be around a bunch of other people or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so is there a piece of gear that you cannot do a gig without?
I mean, it really is the MA. Like, well, I mean, I can do, if there's a console there, I can do a show.
Yeah.
I'm not an idiot when it comes to other lighting consoles. Like, I can program other
But
lighting
if you're
consoles.
leaving your shop and you only get to take one piece of gear with you,
I have to carry it physically.
no, you're going too deep into this, Christian. Quit asking stupid
I'm like, how
questions and
much
just
does
friggin' answer me, will you?
it's
The MA
it's the MA
concept.
two. It's the MA
Yeah.
two. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be
Yeah.
either that or laptop and a camera. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, a camera I would think is pretty important. Do you usually use a camera or do you use your phone when you're doing videos?
Depends. When I come back from doing a weekend of shows, I'll usually have like 3 or 4 different sources of video. So it'll be the phone's always in my pocket. So if for whatever reason I don't have the camera, um, I can use that real quick
Yeah.
because some footage is better than no footage,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and you know, I bought a camera because everyone said I had to if I was going to do any YouTube stuff at all. And
Is that sitting back there? Is that on your
yeah,
tripod back? Yeah.
Canon G7X or whatever,
Hmm.
GX7.
Yeah.
What do you use? What camera do you use? What's your like
Um,
go-to blogging
this
camera?
one is this guy right here.
Okay.
So this is a Sony A7 Mark III
Okay. It's a little
with
less it's a little less unassuming than my little
yeah,
tiny Canon.
it is. It's very
Yeah.
in your face, and
Yeah.
I have that one, and then I recently bought the mini version of that. It has
Okay.
the same. It's basically a really good B camera for when I don't want to have that big thing in
Yeah.
someone's face.
Yeah.
It's a little more discreet. But yeah,
But when
I'm
you're
a
like
Sony
walking
guy.
around recording your steps and you're on a stage and walking around the
It's
stage
the
and
big
stuff,
camera.
you're carrying that big camera.
Yep,
Really?
for the most part. I mean, I've got the
Yeah.
little GoPros and stuff for I'm a real big geek about image quality, um, both with photo and video, and so I've just done a ton of research and finally gotten to the point where I have like all the settings where I want them, and I've got like a workflow that gives me the best result, I think. And yeah, it's just using the right tool for the job. So
Interesting.
if I need to put a camera on a moving light, the big camera doesn't go on there. The little one of the GoPros does, or
Yeah.
I use the phone for some of that stuff.
And so like 100% of your day, are you walking around with like a
No,
GoPro strapped to your head or your chest or something?
no, I mean it depends on the day. If it's like an outdoor festival, it really depends on like how much physical work I have to do. If I'm like I need to be on deck building stuff, I'll just put a GoPro on the chest, and I'll usually have a hoodie on, and it just like you can kind of barely see it pop out.
But people
Um,
know it's there because they know Christian, right?
People, yeah, I mean, people can assume, or sometimes I'll hide a GoPro like 15 feet up on side stage and then just aim it at the stage. So at least there's like something I can like either time lapse. It doesn't have to be like, oh, here, look at me, everybody, I'm doing
Yeah.
this thing. It can still be contextual of the actual show that we're doing.
But do people ever get sketchy with you on the Christian, I don't want you recording me?
I've never had anybody like specifically ask that, but I tend to not put it in people's faces just as a general rule. I've only recently with friends who I'm like very close to, and who know what I'm doing and who I've spoken about it privately with. And by the way, if there's anybody watching who is like, I didn't like that you put me in a video, just let me know and I can make changes to that. But
Yeah.
yeah, for the most part, people know, and most people are supportive of it. And yeah,
So how much time are you spending on editing in a day? Like, is it a couple hours a day every day or?
so to give you, well, now
Yeah, now it's a lot heavier, I would
it's a
guess.
lot heavier now. But back when I was touring and doing bus gigs or doing flight dates, any of that stuff, every show that I do a video for, like those long format, 20-minute vlog style, if you want to call it that, it comes out to about 30-ish hours of editing work
Damn.
for that video.
Wow.
And it's probably just because I'm not very good at it.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could get it trimmed down, but
Well, or you're just really super anal about it, like where
yeah,
you got to get it right. Like you're really dialed into getting it proper.
yeah, I've tried hiring people too, and they've done a good job. And so like there's no hard feelings, but there's something to be said about just editing your own footage, because
Yeah.
even if I have someone else edit, I still review it and I come back and I make changes that take not as much time, but I spend half as much time. So instead of spending 30 hours on a video, I pay someone to do the edits, and then 7 days later, I get to spend 15 hours doing it instead of
Right.
30.
Right. I get it. Well, and I mean, it's never going to be exactly how you want it unless you do it yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're really into what that look or feel or content is about, you got to do it yourself. You
Yeah.
almost
And
have
I
to.
don't want it to be like a produced thing. I don't
Yeah,
want it to, I don't. It
I'm
seems
with you on
so
that. Yeah, I'm with you on
seems
that. I
so
don't.
antithetical.
Yeah, I'm just not into big productions on this stuff. It's got to
Yeah.
be. It's got to feel organic. You know.
Hmm.
So back to these questions. Is there a piece of gear that hasn't been created that you'd like to see created?
Um, it's kind of been created, but I really think having this is what I envision. I would like drones that you can mount a moving mirror to. They've done static mirrors, but they haven't done. I haven't seen moving mirrors. So a quiet drone, electrically powered, that you can mount a payload on of 2 to 3 pounds for a moving mirror assembly. And there's so many things with like the center of gravity on a small drone that's small enough to be quiet, but have the mirror as a large enough target to be able to hit either with lasers or that's my one piece of gear
Do
that
you
I
know
would kill for.
Nils?
I don't know.
So
I don't think so.
Nils is one of the founders of Flying Pig Systems, Whole Hog,
Hmm.
and you know, went on to create a bunch of other companies. But he's a real techie, nerdy guy, super smart guy. And so he has a company called Verge Aero, which is a drone show company now. And Nils was actually on the happy hour yesterday. Anyways, I could connect you with Nils and you could talk to
That'd be
him
amazing.
about this stuff. They make their own drones. Their drones have light sources in them. And
Mhm.
he'd be a great guy to talk about that because not only does he really understand drone technology, he understands the limitations, from a standpoint of regulations and stuff
Yep.
that you can or can't do. He understands lighting. He understands lighting control because he helped develop the Hog and Hog 2 and
Hmm.
Hog 3. And so he'd be a really great guy for you to talk to about that. I'll connect you to through
Yeah, that'd be
through an
great.
email.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
even sure
cool.
if it's like, when you're doing these like back of the envelope calculations about what you want to exist in the world, it's like, can you make something that is even quiet, that is small enough to not be noticeable, but carry a large enough payload to support something like a moving mirror on it?
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's physically possible, but yeah,
Why does
that's
the mirror need to move if the drone can move?
because if the drone moves, then the thrust vector changes, and then the drone itself will move.
Oh,
So the
I see
drone
what you're
needs to be
saying.
static, and then the mirror would move underneath it. So you
Right.
could you could in theory move the drone up while the mirror is
Yeah. So the
well
mirror,
up.
like a camera, would have to be on a gimbal as
Exactly.
well, because otherwise, like as the wind is shifting and stuff, the
Yeah.
thing is constantly
Yeah,
moving.
and
So
the
you'd need a
mirror would
gimbal on the
become
mirror.
it would become a big sail for anything in the wind. So it
Yeah.
would just
Interesting.
the surface area of it would just catch it. So
Yeah.
there's like there's it's a multi, just like I said, pulling back the tiers of the problem and solving
Yeah.
it one step at
It's
a
a
time
cool
from
idea though.
the way back.
I hear whenever I ask people that question, I hear unbelievable things. And sometimes I hear things that are really, really surprising. Like for the longest time, people were saying a smaller moving light. I need a smaller moving light that does this and this and this. And then all of a sudden, we've got loads of small moving lights that do those things. And then somebody says, I want a larger moving light that's got a discharge lamp in it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Oh,
Where are
yeah. The
you coming
discharge
from
lamp.
with that? Or
I
a
think people.
moving mirror, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Do you remember the? I can't remember what the manufacturer was, but it's called a mini Patend, and or it would
Patent light. Yeah, it was
patent.
American
Yeah.
DJ. It was GLP.
Really? Okay.
GLP is the company who created that.
That was one of the first lights when I like started getting into gear, and I was like, okay, like that is a funny little invention, and I admire everything that went into it, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what you know
Yeah, no, it
one of the
was
things down the gear rabbit hole.
yeah, it was GLP. Um who was the greatest influence in your career? I think you've already said that.
Yeah, it's got to be probably Joe Cole. Honestly,
Yeah.
he's a great business owner. He helped me out a lot with giving me a bunch of tough love in the beginning because when I came out here, I really didn't know anything and just knew that I wanted to learn. And he put up with me, showing up at calls after I had already been on a 12-hour call at a different show, and me being tired and him being understanding of everything. He's an awesome designer. Like he is, probably one of the most creative in the space of like corporate events and doing these really like he he uses a lot of curve trust. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
It's a lot of very um, unique looking stuff that he puts together, and
Hmm.
so he doesn't get enough credit for what he does or what he's
Well,
done.
just seeing the way you are, he probably put up with a lot of questions too, I would guess.
You'd be surprised. Like I hate asking
Oh, really?
questions. Yeah, I really want to figure out stuff on my own for the most part. Like
Oh, wow.
I've
Interesting.
been forcing myself to learn Vectorworks like 6 hours a day. And
Yeah.
so in the morning I wake up and I do Vectorworks, and then the rest of the night is
You're
YouTube
very,
videos.
very, very disciplined. That's
So
that's
I
impressive.
barely even watch the Vectorworks tutorials. I just like literally just straight into the screen and try to create things. And
Yeah.
I just need to get to the point with Vectorworks where I am with MA, and then I'll be okay.
But the funny thing is, you could use your knowledge of social media platforms and YouTube as
Mhm.
currency to learn Vectorworks.
But I
And
don't
I
want
know,
to
again, you
because
don't like to leverage those things.
I want, well, not only that, but I feel like it would be cheating people if, because for example, when I told people I was like, oh man, I'm like barreling into Vectorworks and it is the biggest pain in my ass. I post on Twitter about it probably like every other day about how I'm uninstalling Vectorworks and it's pissed me off so much.
Yeah.
But I get messages from people like, hey man, do you want to do like a one-on-one training thing? And I say no. I think I've only hit up one of my friends once for an issue that ended up being a bug because I couldn't
Huh.
figure it out for the life of me. Because eventually I want to get to the point where I'm good enough with Vectorworks or I can do the same thing with MA and not feel like I took anything from anybody to create that content.
It's very interesting approach and attitude towards it. Because, I mean, for me, I'm just so busy that if I can cut a corner, I'll usually do that. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like, you know, some of these people who are coming to me to learn podcasting, if I answer the first series of questions, they come back with a much longer second series of
Yes.
questions and then another third series that's this big that I'm on.
Yep.
I could be on a call with them or a Zoom call or something for hours. So I always start my first sort of podcast, whatever you want to call it, like lesson
Hmm.
with, okay, here's the thing. You got to go to YouTube. Let me tell you 5 things to start searching on YouTube. One, how do I do a podcast? Two, how do I host a podcast? Three, what kind of items do I need to record a podcast? You need
Yep.
to go watch these videos. We're going to talk about them next time I talk to you. All right.
You've got
Let's talk
homework.
again in a couple days. And if they won't take the time to learn some things on their own, then I'm wasting my time.
Yep.
You can't really teach somebody who won't teach themselves. And then finally, how do you give back? And so I our industry is a very grateful and very giving industry when it comes to sharing your time, teaching people, helping people. Um, like a lot of designers who are older, who have been doing this for a long time, will go back to the school, their alma mater, or whatever you call that. They'll go back
Yeah.
there and they'll become an assistant professor or a professor of lighting, or they'll do speaking, or they'll just they'll give to the church that they went to when they were growing up. They'll give them a lighting
Yeah.
package and a lighting design, or even just through things like what you're doing. I mean, I'm sure this is the answer anyways, but your YouTube, really is coaching.
Yeah.
So
It's funny, like, yeah, the YouTube is the most obvious thing, but it's not a philanthropic thing. Like, I mean, I get ad revenue from it. I
yeah,
am able to, you know, get support that way. But um, really, I think the real answer to that question is, um, and I'm one of those people, like, I get actually really annoyed when I see people post about the good things that they do or like the how magnanimous they are. It's like it bugs me to no end. So I don't think I've previously ever talked about like things that I do or um you know who I donate to or anything like that, but I have
right.
a very like very regular set of donations for various organizations that I leave is 100% anonymous.
Yeah.
So that's one way that I do it. Another way is this is like one of the luck of the draw things with people who send me messages, because people see me as like some in like god tier level person in the industry when I'm really not. But I still take the time as much as I can if I'm, you know, don't mean to be crass, but if I'm literally just sitting in the bathroom on my phone,
Yeah.
I'll go through 2 or 3 random messages of people who send me messages saying, "Hey, I'm 15 years old. I have no idea how to do any of this or where to even begin. Is there any like advice you can give?" And then I'll just list out basically what I talked about here, and you know, finding finding a place where you can coil cables, finding a place where you can get some sort of real mentorship, because even though it may seem like I'm mentoring people through the screen, that doesn't replace like actually getting hands on. It's this, what I do online is purely an inspiration for you to learn on your own, not to, you know,
Yeah.
just copy paste.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I mean, you know, you're a really very unique individual. I got to be honest. I didn't expect some of the things that have come through on this discussion, and you are incredibly laid back, very authentic.
Thank
Um,
you.
you know, I don't know passive is the right word. You know, to me, you're just a genuinely nice guy who's not, you know, as much as you're self-promoting, you're not trying to self-promote. That's
Yeah.
almost like a byproduct of what you're really doing, you know, which is sharing. I think you're
Right.
sharing more than you're promoting, you know,
Well, thank you.
and it's really incredible. And I've enjoyed getting to know you for an hour here. I appreciate it
Likewise.
very much. You taking the time, and you know, I'll help you on this MA3 thing as much as you don't want help. I'll secretly help
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Okay.
And what do you have? Do you have a full size too or a light?
I have a light and a couple little odds and ends like nodes and things like
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Christian.
Thanks,
And
Marcel.
certainly, if there's ever anything I can do to help you out or whatever, you know, and take care of yourself during this crazy time. I mean, at least
Hey.
unlike some others, you've got something that you can really focus your energy on.
Yeah. The B plan became the A plan real quick.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that
Yeah.
funny how that works? Well, you have an awesome day and be safe, be well.
Thank you so much. You as well.
Thank you, man.
Bye bye.
See ya.